Good morning. It feels like an age since I've actually made one of these, and yes, you've guessed it right. It is a chocolate orange cover. Now this time I've done a little owl. I've called him a scruffy baby owl because obviously he's got these little fluffy bits here, and I've done the fluffy bits at the bottom here, which you don't have to do, but I thought it makes it look like he's sitting in a nest and he's sort of perhaps peeping over. That's the only reason I did that, but you could do that just plain, as I will describe when we do the video. So here he is. We'll take him off the orange. So as you know, there's your chocolate orange, so I'll pop that to one side. This chocolate orange is getting so battered. Can you see how the label's getting all scruffy now? Because it's the one I use to sort of demonstrate, really. So it gets used and used and used. It ends up a very strange shape. It'll get eaten one day. There we go. Probably be out of date by that point. So here he is. He's a very cute little owl. Looking at him, I think he made a very cute little hat. I may have to contemplate that at some point. I did say I was going to do an owl hat for the dolls at some point, but here he is. So this is what we're going to do. I have double knit yarn. I have some eyelash yarn. Now we call it eyelash yarn here. You may call it something else. Can you see how it sort of works? So it's just like on one thread, and then all these little sort of lashes or sort of tufts come out from the center point. You don't have to use this. It was something I had, and like I said, because I got this idea of him being a scruffy owl, I just thought it looked quite nice. So I will use that in the video, but I will comment that you don't have to. So we'll pop that to one side. I've just chose a variety of colours here. I just wanted to, as you can see, this colour, to be honest, is only in here. I just wanted to give it a bit of a sort of a colour change, a bit of depth there. But again, you could have just left it this colour, however you want. I have a couple of buttons here that I have used for his eyes. I quite like the button detail. And I have a little bit of yellow here, which is this little beak here. And I've already cut my tufts, so don't worry, I don't have to cut those with you. So I have my needles, I have my scissors, and I have a 3.5mm crochet hook. So we might as well get started. So this is the colour I'm going to use first, so we'll move those over there. This will be a pattern that is available on my website. I will try and get it up as soon as the video goes up, so it's there ready for people if they're wanting to buy an actual hard copy of a pattern. They're downloadable patterns, so they're easy enough to do. Obviously just purchase them and you'll get a link to download them from there. So where we're going, pop in there, let's pop in there. Now this ball came undone, as it was sort of like, well, it was this sort of ball and it came undone, so it's sort of very roughly wound up at the moment. So we'll undo it a little bit so it's not going to roll about too much. As with most of my items, I'm going to be starting amigurumi style. He is predominantly an amigurumi style, although we are using half trebles. Please remember I'm using UK terms as well. So onto the hook with a slip knot, and we're going to do our 2 chain. And yes, if you've done my videos before, you're going to guess it. We're going to do 6 double crochets into that first chain. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So we need to double it up now, so we're going to be doing 2 double crochets in each one, which will give us 12 stitches in total. It's a little bit hard sometimes to find the first one, so count from the back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. It's actually here, even though it looks like you might go there, but it's here. Make sure we do pick up both sides, because as I said, the first one's always a bit tricky. And we're going to do 2 double crochets in there. So that's our first increase. Now we're going to do 2 in each of the next 5. So this is our second one. So there's 2 double crochets in that one, 2 double crochets in number 3, 2 double crochets in number 4, and in number 5, and in number 6. So we now have 12 stitches. I'm just going to pull this tight, because that was my slip knot, just to make sure this center point is nice and closed. If you're having problems closing it, perhaps sometimes your slip knot doesn't slip like it should, or you've caught the yarn, you can always run a stitch through it afterwards, but it is easier if you can do it this way. We're now going to be doing another increase, but it's not going to be 2 in each. It's going to be 2 in one and 1. Oh, I'm doing this wrong. I'm telling you wrong here. It is actually 2 in each. I have got my pattern here It's over here. Look, I've actually typed it up for once. It's not all written in rough. So yes, we do need 24 stitches next. So it is 2 double crochets in each. If you want to place a stitch marker at this point, you can, but I think we can count 12 stitches. So here we go, 2 in each of these 12. 1, 2 and 2, 2 and 3, number 4, number 5, 2 in 6, it's 2 in every one, remember, in 7, in 8, a couple more to go, number 9, 10, 11, and one more, so 2 in this last one, and in 12. So we should have 24 stitches now, so you can see it's starting to get larger. Now this is where it's going to be what I was trying to tell you a second ago. It's terrible, I usually use the excuse I can't read my own writing. Well, it's typed up this time, so I've got no excuse at all. So we are actually going to be changing our stitch. We're going to be moving on to half trebles. So what I'm going to do before I go on to that half treble is I'm going to do a slip stitch into my next one, just a slip stitch, so it just goes through and through. It flattens it a little bit. That's the only reason I've done a slip stitch there. And this is the only time I'm going to do a chain start. I am going to work on an amigurumi system with the half treble, even though it's not traditionally done like that, but it is a quite easy one to do it with. So I'm going to start with 2 chain. That is going to count as my first half treble. And then I'm going to do a half treble into the base. You can see where the hole is, where you've done that stitch just here. You see it? So I'm going to do a half treble, so it's yarn round into the space directly below, pull it through. You do have the 3 on the hook as if you were doing a treble, but we're not. We're doing a half treble, so we've got to pull it through all 3. So grab your yarn and pull it through all 3. So it's a slightly shorter stitch, a little bit denser than that treble. I do like it as a stitch. We're now going to do 1 half treble in the next one, so yarn round, in, pull it through, 3 on the hook, but pull through all 3. Now you can do them bit by bit, you don't have to pull through all 3 at once, but it essentially brings that yarn through all of those stitches. Now we're going to repeat that system. It's going to be 2 half trebles in one, 1 half treble in the other, and you're going to do that all the way around. There's in total, if you include this chain, it's 12 sets, but it's 11 sets after you've done that first bit, and it should bring you back to here, which is what we're aiming for, and it should give you 36 stitches. So off we go. So 2 in the next one. Remember, if you need to slow me down, there is a setting to do that, or just stop and start. I think that's one of the easiest ways of doing it. So 2 in that one, 1 in the next one. Now these are half trebles, you know, and I said you don't have to take them all the way through. I'll show you why. There's 2 in this next one. You can do that, and then you can just pull through a 2 and a 2 if you want, whichever way you do your half trebles. So that should have been a 2 in this one, shouldn't it? 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one, 1 and 2, 1 in the next one, 2 in the next one, 1 in the next one, and then 2. So you're just going to be doing that all the way around. So this is a 2 and a 1, a 2, and a 1. Easy to count at least as well. If the half trebles, you can sort of see your stitch. Can you see, like, there's 2, let me move the hook a minute, you can see there's 2 going into the same hole. So if you do lose count, it's quite easy to go back and go, oh, was that a 2 or was it a 1? A little bit more difficult with the double crochet. So I know that last one was a 1, so this one's got to be a 2 and a 1, a 2 and a 1. We're almost there. A 2 and a 1, and my last 2. Now I should finish with a 1, and then it goes. There we go. So in total then there's 12 sets if you include that 2 chain at the beginning. Now I'm not going to slip stitch join here, so no slip stitch join. I'm just going to continue round with half trebles because that is all it's going to be. There is no more increase in here. I will bring orange over so we can sort of sample every now and again, have a look, and I'm going to count how many rounds we have here. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7 rounds that are going to just be half trebles. So I think it's stitch marker time. I got this one out today. It's a little pussycat in a boat. It sort of reminded me Owl and the Pussycat sort of scenario. That's why I pulled that out. So directly below the stitch you've just finished. Remember to move this up every so many rows though, especially when it's a half treble because it's a slightly longer stitch. All right, let's undo this so it's not going to roll. It is going to roll. Excuse me, I've got a drink of water here. I think I'll have a little quick drink. Bear with me. There we go, that's a bit better. So it'll end up on the floor, I know it will. I do try not to, or I pop them in a basket, but they still end up there. So we're going to just be doing continual rounds of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 and 7. Now, as always, I haven't got my pen. I knew there was something I was missing, so I'm actually going to be using items I've got next to me to sort of count each row that we're doing. So I said it was 7, wasn't it? The thing is, your tension could be different to mine as well. So after you get so far, measure it on your orange just in case, because you might need a little bit less, a little bit more. So the first one's difficult because it was that 2 chain, but we're going to do a half treble into the top of that 2 chain. So it's a little bit hard to get into. There we go. So it's now just 1 half treble in every single stitch. Off we go. Now you may want to leave me here and just get on at your own pace. As I say, 7 rounds and then check it on your orange. There are a couple of more rows at rounds, I'm making up words, rounds after that, but the 7 is just the half trebles. Okay. So if you're wanting to whiz off, I'll pause me now. I'll see you in a little while. Otherwise, I'm going to be just carrying on round with my 7 rounds of half trebles. The half trebles go more smoothly after a while, so you can pull it through all 3. But if you're getting used to it, do that bit sort of thing, and just pause me and come back when you're ready. Look at that, we're already halfway around that one. It grows a little bit quicker doing it with half trebles. I don't know what the weather's like where you are. It's absolutely awful here. Normally, I mean, obviously it depends what country you're in, but here in the UK, May is usually quite a nice month. But we had some quite hot weather in April, which again was a little bit weird. And at the moment, it is absolutely chucking it down with rain, and it's cold. I've even put the heating on, which I wouldn't normally have to bother with so much at this time of year, although I do get cold. I was going to use an expression then, but then I thought, well, depending on where you're from, you'll not know what I'm on about. I was going to say I'm nesh. And basically it's not liking the cold, and sort of perhaps you get a little bit whiny when you get a bit cold, things like that. So I'm nesh, so we say. So that is round 1 of the 7 we've got to do. So off we go. That again, that first one looks a little bit weird because there was a slight jump when you did it, but it's fine. It'll neaten up, don't worry about it. Off we go again for our round 2. It's quite a nice yarn, this. It's actually a Stylecraft yarn that I'm using. I think this is all Stylecraft today. I'm pretty sure it is. I know I do have the odd other one. I sort of end up collecting different wool from different places. But Stylecraft is the main one that I do use. And it is really nice and soft to work with. And it's not an expensive yarn either. Got a colour chart through from them recently. And oh, the colours are so nice. Just don't know where to start. So just still half trebles. We're not thinking about anything else. Don't bother counting even. Just keep an eye on where your stitch marker is, and every time you get round to that stitch marker, mark down you've done another round. And be more practical than me, and make sure you've got a pen with you. I can see where the pen is, but I try. The last couple of videos I've been getting up and down because I keep forgetting things, so I'm trying not to. So I'm going to stay here. It's my own fault I haven't got the pen. So this is round 2 and we're not far off round it. You can see it starting to curve now. Caught a little bit there, be careful. If you do feel you're going to split a stitch, stop and start. It's best that than having a sort of a little piece of yarn sticking out when you finish, because you'll end up sometimes with a little loop and it looks a little bit messy on your work then. Almost round to that stitch marker, which I think I'm going to move up next. I'm going to do one more and then I'm going to move the stitch marker up. There we go, and you can see it's curving now, so we want to sort of push it out the other way. You see how it's starting to sit over the orange shape, so it's got your little curve, so you know it's the right size when you get to that point. So round 3, off we go. If you're seriously wanting to count your stitches, you should have the 36 stitches at this point. We double check that it is 36, it is. But I'm just going to work stitch marker to stitch marker, especially when you're talking or if you've got a distraction or you're watching the TV or something like that. The stitch marker is a definite thing to have. If you haven't got a stitch marker, a little piece of sort of contrast yarn just to push through your work is enough just to mark where you started. Oh, it's rolling. I know it's going to go. I'm desperate. I'm trying to keep it next to me. It's here. So keeping it next to me so it doesn't roll off. So I'm going to try. We're on round 3 and it's not rolled off yet. We're doing okay. I'm actually using bits of yarn to mark off what rounds I'm on. And it's the little bits of yarn that I've cut for his ears. Got tangled there. Almost around for number 3. One more, and that is round 3. So I'm going to mark off. Well, I'm not. I'm going to grab another piece of yarn, and that is my number 3. Number 4. So again, still half trebles. Just make sure you're wrapping that yarn round and pulling it through all 3. I think this one's going to be my mum's favourite. My mum loves owls. And when I told her that I was doing a little chocolate orange owl, she says, oh, she'll have to do me one. Because the thing is, as much as it's over a piece of chocolate, let's have a little look, he doesn't have to be, because he sits quite nicely just on the side. They're quite solid. So you don't have to have it over a piece of chocolate. You could have it over a piece of fruit. You could just have him sat there. I just think he looks really cute. So even if you buy it as a buy somebody a chocolate orange and make it as a gift, they can still have it sat on the side when they've eaten their orange. Or if they want to pad it out a little bit, they could put a little bit of stuffing in it or something like that just to sit on the side. Almost round for round 4. I'll have a quick look on how it's sitting on that orange then. If you do find it is coming out too big, if your tension is a little bit looser than mine, you could always go down a hook size. I'm using a 3.5. You could go down to a 3. Sometimes it is trial and error. That is one problem. It's the same with any crafting, but particularly the yarn crafts, I think, because people's tension does vary. You will get a slight difference. So sometimes you might trial and error, you might make something and it's come out a little bit big or a little bit small. So that's why I've got the orange here, so we can keep checking that our sizing's okay. It's better that than getting all the way to the end and then realising it's either way too big or it won't fit on the orange at all. My tension's a bit midway, to be honest. Right, I'm going to mark them down. That was round number 4. And let's have a look. Can you see how it's sitting on? Now you do need a bit of stretch, so it doesn't matter if it's a little bit tight because the yarn will stretch a bit, but you don't want it too big, or you don't want it so you literally can't get it over this top bit. So round 5, off we go. Round number 5. We're actually, well, I would say almost halfway over his body now. So it's not a long job. I'm not going to say it is a beginner crochet, because the problem being is if you say something's a beginner crochet, people think that if they've never crocheted they can just pick it up and they'll be able to do it. You'll know yourself if you've been crocheting a while or if you've only just started. It's not quite as simple as that. I do recommend that you do practice different styles before perhaps you do something like this, or just look at the basics. Again, like with any craft, is practice, 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 practice. The more you do, the better you're going to get. Just don't be upset if the first time you do something, it goes wrong. Mine have gone wrong plenty of times. And I think I'm losing my voice. I'm going to have another drink of water. Oh, I don't know what's wrong with me this morning. I can't blame it on the hay fever or anything like that because the weather is awful. And I'm indoors anyway, so I can't say there's any pollen count. I hope I'm not getting a cold. Can do without that. But yeah, crochet is purely like with any craft, practice. And things do go wrong. The amount of things that I've thrown in the bin because they've gone wrong, or I've got upset with them, I'm not doing that anymore. And it's took a long time for me to get to a point where, oh well, it's gone wrong. Try again. Especially when you're making patterns. I don't just sit down and make a pattern. Sometimes there's a lot of mistakes there and you're having to redo them. So it's not quite as simple as people make it look sometimes. So I'm not going to say it's for a beginner, but I don't see why a beginner couldn't have a good go at this and probably do an exceptional job. Right, so we're round again. So that was round 5, wasn't it? So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, I got count, 4, 5 it is. We're on round 6. So I'm going to stop saying my things are for beginners in some respects when I do a tutorial like this, because I don't want people getting upset if they say, well, I can't do it and I'm a beginner. I bet you could if you had a couple of goes though. Perseverance. And I bet there's some of you starting some of these for Christmas gifts. I know I'm certainly thinking about it. I know it's only May and it seems a bit mad, but you know, look what happened last year. Life went very strange for everybody. Because I was one of these sort of strange people that are organised, the actual Christmas element of life was not a problem at all. Obviously, we were having a very hard time and people were having some awful, awful times. But sometimes being organised is not a bad thing. Oh, it nearly went. It nearly went. I only just caught it that time. So because we're just doing 1/2 treble in every stitch now, that is what sort of shapes it round. As soon as you go straight, or you're just doing a single stitch in each one, that is when it'll just go straight down. Right, that was another one gone. We need just one more. One more of 1/2 trebles, that is. We haven't finished his body quite yet, but this is just our last round of 1/2 trebles. So this is round number 7. We're nearly there. We're going to be moving on to double crochets again in a moment, but I want to double check the size of it on the orange before we decide how many. I have got it down that it is 2 rounds of just double crochets, but depending on your tension, that is when you can adjust. You can do an extra round. You can do 1 less extra rounds. You know, that's all it takes to adjust for something like this. As long as you've got the basic fit, the length is something you can either add an extra or take away an extra. Almost round to my stitch marker. That I should have been moving up, shouldn't I? But I haven't done. So 1 more stitch, and let's have a look how it fits on this little guy. There we go. So you can see now I'm not far off there. So I'm going to be doing 2 rounds of just double crochets, back to that double crochets, and then I'm going to be switching into the eyelash. So when I get to the end of that double crochet round, I will then give you the option. You either carry on doing maybe another 2, which I think you will need another 2, we'll see, or if you've got some eyelash knocking about, it just makes a cute addition, that's all. It doesn't have to be the multicolored brown, it could be a black, it could be just a plain brown. It's just something to sort of look a bit like a nest. I just thought, as I said, that looked like a scruffy nest, this one. So I'm going to move my stitch marker now, because I should have moved him before, shouldn't I? Up it goes. So 2 rounds of just 1 double crochet into each stitch. So remember, now it's going to be hard because you've been wrapping, and sometimes when you swap from one to the other it can be a pain. So remember, no wrapping, in, pull it through, double crochet and continue round. Now some of you will have rejoined me now after doing your 7 rounds of half trebles, so hello and welcome back, and let's get on with these double crochet rounds. Again, you don't need to stay with me, we're doing 2. Some of you could be a lot faster than me. Some of you might be newish, so you want to take your time. There's no race. I do struggle to slow myself down, I must admit. I know a couple of people have said that I do go quite fast. I do, and I have actually slowed myself down. I do try, but I am aware, as I say, you can start me and just take your own time to do it. So it's just the last 2 rounds before the eyelash, this is. So we'll have a quick look on the fit before I use the eyelash yarn. And then that is when you will decide if you're doing the eyelash, fine, you'll do 1 more round of eyelash with me, or you will have to do either 1 or 2 more rounds of double crochet. I think it will be 2, but we will have a quick look when we get there, because that wasn't something that I'd written down because I'd done it with the eyelash. Right, so that's our round 1. So 1 more round of just double crochet and then we're yarn swapping. I'm going to have to put some socks on after I've done this video. I have sandals on at the moment and my feet are freezing. I think I'll be putting my boots on to go out shopping, not sandals. Well, I definitely won't be wearing sandals because the rain is just getting heavier and heavier out there. I have done well with this ball, it hasn't fallen off the table, and I'm on my last round in this colour. I could be tempting fate though. You will stay on the table. It's like a little basket at the moment, so it's a nice little basket shape. Nearly there. And there we go. So let's have a little look on how far down it's come on my orange, so you'll give you an idea. So you can see it's almost there. So if you were not using eyelash, I would say 1 more round should be enough. But again, do that round, pop it back on the orange and see what you think from there. I'm going to take the stitch marker out because I'm changing yarn, so I don't need it. The yarn will show me where I'm going. So pop it out there, and I can actually now cut off the ball that didn't fall off the table, I'm glad to say. So I'm going to throw it over there, out of the way, and I'm going to pick up this yarn. Now, I used to love eyelash yarn when I was a knitter. Not that I can't knit anymore, I just don't choose to knit anymore. My main knitting was done when my children were young, so that was a long time ago, and before I started to teach myself to crochet. And then as soon as I had got the crochet, that was it. That's all I wanted to do. And this is a great knitter's yarn. It is not so easy to use for crochet. The one round we're going to do will be fine, but if you have to do more, it is really, really hard to see where the stitches are. You can use it, and with practice you get to feel where it's going, but it's not much fun apart from that. So I'm not going to overly worry about how I'm joining this because it's a bit fluffy. You can't tell anyway. So if your join's not so great, you'll not see. So I've just got my yarn ready on this hand, and all I'm going to do is pull it through that stitch there, and then I will tie those off after the fact. Already you can see it's difficult to see. And I'm going to do one double crochet into every single one of these. You will not be able to see the stitches here, I can guarantee it. So I'm going to go into my next one, pull it through, and fluff. Can you see already? But as long as I can see these, I'm okay. It does give a lovely effect, but like I say, you can crochet with it, but it's not the easiest yarn. Just to do one round though, like on this, it'll be fine. If you needed to do more than one round, you might get a little bit cross with it if you're not used to it. But if you were doing like just a small edge on something, I know, because if I'm doing some of the dolls' clothes, it's great to be able to just put like a fluffy edging around a collar or sort of around a hood or something like that. And you only need to do the one round then. But you can see it is difficult to actually see. So if we look back at that now, it's like, where are my stitches? You can see them. They are there. You can see a little bit of ribbony bit there, but it just takes a bit of practice. But we're only doing one, so we don't need to worry about that, do we? So just one round in this nice eyelashy yarn. Let me know what you call it where you're from. I mean, I've called it eyelash, but I think there is another term over here as well. I'm not 100%. You can see why eyelash, I suppose. But I'm sure it's called lots of different things. So pop a comment down if you call it something else. I'd love to know. It's always good. You're always learning something new. Don't presume that what you know is the only way. There are different ways, different methods, different sort of words for things. And it's nice to learn new things. We're almost round. And then we'll be fastening off and making sure you tie those ends off as well. I'm not going to do that at the moment because I want to get on to showing you the next part so we can get on with our cutie little owl, baby owl here. I think there's two more, one more, and we've done. Look at that, that didn't take long. I've had this eyelash so long, as I say. I like it, but I just don't really use it much, so I've had it stored for ages. I'm glad I kept it now though. Right, and pull it through, and you would obviously sew in all your ends, but for now I'm just going to push them all in there, and I'm going to slip it over my orange so we can see. We can pretend that's the nest he's sat in, or it's just a little fluffy collar round where his sort of feathers are still a little bit scruffy, bless him. So we're going to have a look at doing the eye next. I've used this sort of stony colour. Again, it could be cream, it could be white, whatever you want. You can do your owl any colour because there are lots of different owls anyway. This is really simple. Of course, you're going to need two of them, and we're going to start exactly the same as you did the top. So you've already done this once. So we do 2 chain. We do 6 double crochets into the first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. We are now going to do just 2 in each to give us our 12, exactly the same as here. So 2 double crochets into each stitch to give us 12. So that is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and one more, number 6. And I'm actually going to do a slip stitch to finish off because it just keeps it a little bit smoother than if you did a double crochet. So that is eye number 1. So you just need 2 of those. So I'm not going to do 2. You don't need to see me do 2. So that is our little eye. Now, if you are using buttons, you may be using felt or something else, I recommend you sew the button on now. Get rid of this end. Keep this end because this is for sewing the eye on, but definitely stitch on that button. In fact, we'll do that now. I have a selection of different needles here. Right, we need that one, and we need the one that I've already got some black thread on. That one's too big. Don't want that one. I do like a finer needle. I just find it easier to thread through, and it also doesn't distort your work if you've got a slightly finer needle. As you will see in a second or two, I am going to use one of the chunky ones, but that's for something different. So all I'm going to do with this is thread it through a few times. You're not going to see it. It's on the underside, so it doesn't matter if it's not terribly neat. I mean, obviously, the neater you get, the better with your practice. It will help with the rest of your work. So I will get rid of that now. Get my little button. And it's just regular sewing cotton here with a knot in the end. I do find that the knots will come straight through, so what I recommend is just push it through like that, so your knot's going to stay first, yeah? Push it through and get your button. You don't have to use buttons to say a bit of felt. You could even crochet sort of a smaller circle than we've just done. However, I like to mix the mediums a little bit, that's all. Go through a fair few times, make sure it's nice and secure. So that was our 3rd time through, and I'll do one more. Turn it over and just make a little knot or 2 to make sure it's not going anywhere. Ta-da! So we don't need that now. So that is basically it. And then we're going to sew it into wherever we want. So you can choose where your center point is. Make sure this is central here. My throat is going again, another drink. About there, I think. So now I do need that sort of regular wool needle again. And let's decide about there. I think yes. Right, now quite often I like to start so this is at the bottom. There is no right or wrong, so I'm just going to pick up a little bit. Now can you see I'm only picking up the outer part? Again, you'll have your own way of sewing up, so you don't have to do it same as me. So a little bit of the body, a little bit of the outer eye. There we go. Just a little whip stitch all the way around. By just picking up the outer part, it just flattens it slightly. You can say if you prefer to pick the whole stitch up, that's fine as well. That's just how I prefer to do it. We're nearly there. Got 1 more stitches. Oh, I only just left enough yarn. Always leave enough yarn there at the end to sew up, because otherwise in there you run out and then you got to get another piece of yarn, which is very annoying. I'm going to do a little knot there. Try not to distort the shape of the eye when you're doing something like that. And then I'm just going to thread it. Now it's going under, it's not going through this, it's just going under the eye. Yep, so I've just threaded it through. Make sure it's flat. Thread it through again. There we go. So that's an eye. Now, I think the beak was the weirdest thing to do. I did try doing like a V beak and things like that. It's going to look very strange because I'm going to be doing this with one eye. When you do the eyes, I've literally, can you see that they are together? They are really, really close. So his little beak is just sort of nestling between the two eyes. So I'm going to go for this side. Now for the beak, this might look a little bit weird. I'm going to take it off there for a minute. Looks like a little alien at the minute with just one eye. I've just used this yarn. I have a little knot in the end there. And I'm going to just take it through. It's not going to be accurate this because I haven't got the other eye, but it's just to show you how to do it. So I've just took it through. Make sure it's not going to pull all the way through like that. If it does that, go from the other side and just go over and over to make sure it's not going to come through. Then there we go, that will do. So that's approximately where the beak is on the other one. And this is just how I did the beak. I did a knot. So from there, I went back through the brown and I made a little knot. Well, that's not a very big nose, so I did it again. You could do a French knot if you want. I'm not very successful with French knots, and also I don't think they come out big enough for what we want. So we have another knot and another knot, and I think one more. I think I put 4 on the pattern, but you can do it as many times as you want. And I'm just sort of making sure it goes round the little nose, push it back through, and of course you need to fasten it off on the inside. But that's basically how I did the little nose, and I was quite pleased. Little beak, I shouldn't call it a nose, it's a little beak, isn't it? And it sort of just worked very strangely. It does look odd with one eye, but when you've got the other eye on, it does balance it out quite nice. So pop it back on the orange for now, because I've got one more thing to sort of go through with you, and that is these little ear tufts. Now I decided to mix my colours up just for a bit of variation, again entirely up to you. This was a hard one to try and describe in the pattern actually, but basically I have 3 strands, and they're way too long at the moment, but it's best to be too long. They're about, what, 8 inches in length, 6 to 8 inches. I fold them over. Now you may need to do this one at a time if your needle's not very big, but I have quite a fat sort of wool needle here, which will take quite a lot of yarn. It takes a bit of fiddling, but you can do one at a time. So there we go. So I've managed to get that through mine, but you can do one at a time. And all I've actually done is I've picked a point, as you can see, roughly sort of centre, so about there, say, and it takes a bit of wiggling, but I'm going to wiggle that yarn through. Don't pull it all the way through. There you go. So you can see we've got cut strands, we've got loops. Take my needle out. Get all the loops together so they're nice and flat, nice and smooth. Grab this other part and carefully pull it through, because they will come through at different lengths if you're not careful. So I've just sort of knotted it. Now by going from the front rather than from the back, it means I get this neat line here. Otherwise you get it like that, which is still not bad, but I just think it's a bit neater if you get it like this. So that's all we need for the ears. I then trimmed it off to whatever length you want. And then taking a slightly sharper needle, I'll use this one, I separated up each little piece of the yarn. So you get this like crinkly effect. Now this does 2 things. It gives a nice effect, but it will also help this not coming undone. If you're really nervous about that, I mean, there are various sort of fabric glues that you could add a little bit of glue at the back. But to be honest, if you do this, it will hold it in place anyway. And you need to be aware of who this is going to. On average, these are sort of going to be for sort of either older children or adults as gifts. But if you know a young one is going to be getting hold of it, please be careful and make sure everything's secure and safe. Or if there's a pet happens to get hold of it, make sure things aren't going to come off like buttons and that. So basically, that's his little scruffy ear. You can trim it down to whatever size you want from there. I do need to finish his other eye, because he does look a little bit weird at the moment, but as you can see, he does come out really cute at the end. So let's put the finished one on. And that is a gorgeous little gift for somebody with a very nice sweet treat, or anything else you can think of. In fact, I know I did see one Christmas, there was, you could buy like a ball with a pair of socks in. it would look quite cute over something like that. In fact, that might be an idea, something to think about towards Christmas. I might have to have a think on that. Oh dear, I get these ideas in strange places. But anyway, that is little baby Scruffy Owl today. Thank you very much for watching. If you do enjoy my videos, please like, subscribe and share. It does mean a lot and it makes a difference to the channel when people do that. As I mentioned earlier, if you wish to get hold of a hard copy of the pattern for you to download, I do sell my patterns on my website, which I will pop the link in for there anyway. So for now, we'll see you later and I'll have a think what others we could do. So see you later. Bye.